will discuss today about the ethical dimension of truth in science in a post-truth society. Hello, I am Antonio SANDU, Professor PhD at Stefan Mare University from Suceava at the Ethical Applied Research Center, and also I'm a PhD advisor at Oradea Doctoral School of Sociology and a student in PhD position on law at Titu Maiorescu University from Bucharest, Romania. So some information from this presentation was already present in the previous form in the volume Ethics in Research, Practice and Innovation. The volume was coordinated by me together with Ana Frunze and Elena Unguru. And it's in an international volume, but the information that I will present was treated by me, and so now we will extend that information about the truth in science in post-truth society, and what is post-truth society, how we configured the idea of truth, and what's the specificity of the post-truth. This video presentation it's coming after another presentation in the same conference about ethical dimension of qualitative inquiry in most specific in grounded theory. There I present some ideas about what is the ethical dimension of this kind of research, based on informed by the social constructionism, and in the qualitative inquiry, where we talk about verisimilitude and credibility of the research, not only on the validation or verification of the theory. Nowadays, we often say we live in a post-truth society. So the idea of the post-truth society comes from cultural studies and journalism. And in cultural studies and in journalism, they say that post-truth society applied to post-colonialism in the beginning, then to postmodern or transmodern society, because it's a society where we do not have a unique vision about truth. It's in a social environment that could exist truth in every parts. Every part have their own truth, so it's important to see both parts or multiple parts opinion, and if we say only this or only that idea about society in the beginning is correct or is just, could constitute prejudice for some other vulnerable groups. And can this be applied in science, mainly in social sciences, or is the truth dependent of the context or on the subjectivity of the researcher or of the group that had been study of? That was the idea, and it was the premises of the previous presentation. Now I will present another idea about the ethical dimension of truth in itself, and how the science configure the truth on the postmodern science, and how this change in the age of artificial intelligence, and what's the limit between modern traditional truth that is verifiable, and we can based on, and we can rely on one truth, and there is no many understanding of the truth, and it does not depend of any particular opinion or any particular position. Could be, this be questioned? Is it a new dimension, or we have to stay on the idea, on the same epistemic and axiological value about the truth? So the idea of scientific truth is based on the ontological assumption and of the existence of a unique reality that can be known. The concept of truth is necessary in the framework of theoretical models in order to progress to really exist, really happens progress. In the regards, truth only appears as a non-fake. So something is truth on the Aristotelian logics if that idea is not a fake. So the idea of post-truth society, it's also connected with fake news. So did fake news constitute a truth? Yeah, maybe for some persons, for some reason, but could it be considered truth for science? So obviously, for the first time, we can say no, because it's not. We cannot rely on this fake news. But if we study just the way some people perceived reality and action through their perceptions, we are not interested in what is the truth about them, but in what their perception of truth influence their own reality and their own action or reaction to that what they think they perceived about the reality. Truth as certainty, however, is no longer fully suited to the science, and most specific for that kind of science that we talk about, this so-called social constructed science, social science, and that inform about majority or contextual position, or working with minority, working with the vulnerable group, or something like this, that need a particular context of truth, and truth is become dependent of the context in this regard. In this regard, the truth is only appears as a not fake, as we say. Truth is certainly, however, is no longer fully suited for this kind of science. The concept of truth suffers from an epistemic mutation within the constructionist epistemology. The social constructionist epistemology abandoned the idea according to which the mind of the individual is only the mirror of reality. The constructionism is based on a relationship and support the role of individual in the construction of significant realities. And this significant reality could differ from group to another group, and it depends on the context they make an interpretation about what is truth for an interpretative context, or for an interpretative group, or from the other. As we say, we talk about the social science, mainly about social psychology and or sociology or social work, or this kind of anthropological studies, or this kind of social studies that are sensitive to the social context and is different. So we import from hard science, let's say, the idea of the researcher is important for having the reality. It's something that in physics we call the incertitude principle, and it's applied in quantum physics. But now in social science we can understand this uncertitude principle. That just the researcher and the particular opinion of this researcher could influence and should influence, because it's participatory research, participatory act, and we cannot completely detach about our life context. For instance, if we present about the society we live in, about the society we are part, we're active actors, and when the participants are co-constructors of their own reality, of their own society, so then their truth have a meaning for this, because it's their own truth and it's their own life, and they are experts in their own life. The social constructionist epistemology abandoned the idea of the only one truth, and is based on the relationship and the support of the role of the individual in the construction of significant realities. The realities that are significant for the individual, for this particular individual. Concepts such as the verisimilitude become more adequate to describe the nature of the new law formulated with the sciences, in social sciences especially, which are increasingly drifting away from which literally can be experimented in or every directly observed. So when we say these are the society, these are the real society, we have to question what reality, for whom this society is real. How important is the context for to say this is reality? When we just ask a question in a large group that are the researchers are not sensible to this particular context for or the micro groups in which this phenomena could appear, could be important, for instance, for understand the vote opinion. But if we want to construct a strategy, a particular strategy to vote that differs from different groups or others, then the context and their own reality of the group that we study and we want to influence have more relevance than the general opinion of society. Is that the truth is not the general truth, is not the universal truth, is the particular truth of one or another group. So the truth in the context of new epistemology of post-positivist nature gain an ethical meaning in correlation with the methodology of science and research. The construction of science being an endless series of explanatory models of reality, we can ultimately accept that as a big social construct that facilitate the consensual understanding of reality. An idea could be true because this has correspondence with the reality. So it's the epistemological position, traditional epistemological position about the correlation between the theory and what is the reality. But other definition of the truth could be applied for this situation when we discuss about the particular sense of the truth in one or in another group of the interest. So if we just say this is not a real thing, it's a social constructing, we not go to the extreme and say that the thing does not exist. It exists because he has significance for one or for another group. But in another way, for other perspective, this reality could be seen different. So the truth for that group of interpretative actors could be considered very much different. So this epistemological perspective gain an ethical meaning, because the truth is not, as we say, universal and have no other change, and have in science we try to see the truth, but here we may say we want to formulate a vision about some realities, and that vision is important to practice, to drive practice in one direction or in another, not to just for knowing. And if we want to drive a practice, a social practice, moreover, then it's important the ethical meaning of this reality, because if we say the war in Ukraine doesn't exist, that derive some consequences and some attitude, and in some respect we act as, or the person act as if they really believe that the war in Ukraine doesn't exist. Or if they say, well, the war exists, is real, is a current threat for our society, for all the world, for the peace of the world. So we have another kind of attitude, another kind of position, and so on. So because in this era of post-truth and fake news or deep fake, many people question all the information that are available in the media. It was related to the idea that some persons go from Romania to Ukraine for see the reality of the war, and then they are confronted with a bomb. So that is it is one reality about that war. There are the bombs. Other reality about that war is reality that refugees does. That they have parents, or they have relatives, or sons, or husbands, or other person that's still there, that fight on the front, and it's not a reality that they can tell us, or something like this. So this position is a particular truth, and is not and cannot be unified and say, well, we have only one position, only that position is true. So it doesn't mean the world doesn't exist. We don't have to drive an extreme position, say, no, it not exist, or it's only in the mind of those who discuss and who believes that the war is there. But if some persons want to say, well, for my own business, it's a disastrous situation, some people could deny this attitude and could say, well, the world is not something, it's just mediatic construct of the reality, and we act like media disperse fake news and fake information, and that's how some persons or how some groups could act in society. And if we try to construct a social policy or other kind of policy for this category, we should take into consideration their own particular reason and their own particular definition of truth. So, honesty and fairness in elaborating a research proposal, for example, in the process of research and reporting the results obtained. So, if we understand that truth could differ from group or another, not the unified truth or unified theory, but a particular truth that some group or another group perceive as being truth and they act as such. So most important is fairness and honesty in how we present their own view, or say no, it's a fake information, it's a fake position, and doesn't need to be presented, doesn't need to be stressed, because their own word depends on this, on their own position. So if we want to construct a position for that particular part of the society, we cannot understand. If we do not understand their own truth, their own position, we cannot construct an adequate policy. For instance, policy for poverty. If we address to a group of the person that believe that in the modern society it's against the divine law, so if we try to force some part of the society to modernize, to force modernize themselves, they reject, they refuse, and could migrate from one territory to another, and may come a crisis of refugees or something. Then we say, oh, it's fundamentalistic or fundamentalistic view, and could start religious war, because we do not take into consideration their own particular truth, and we do not. If we cannot accept their own truth, at least we have to understand that they have on a different belief or different understanding of truth, a different truth that start for there to act. So it's more cultural permissivity and honesty in present that reality. Accuracy and fairness in presenting the contribution of others in not only in research, but contribution of each significant context of interpretation for the whole pictures and for the whole presentation. And we have to honestly taste what the limits of our research are, and this limit is correlated with the limit of the context in which research has been made, because this kind of research are contextual dependent, and we cannot say this research is universal and can be repeated and can be retested and in the same condition, and we obtain the same results, because we are not in the position of have the same interpretative condition and or the same interpretative drift. So in this particular kind of science, in social constructionist epistemology, we cannot say that verification by retest the same hypothesis we have exactly the same results. So it's more important that the result could be generalized, and we could derive a meaning from this idea, not have the same context or the same meaning or the same result exactly the same, but some similar that could be generalized and could inform us about what are the particular context in which the one or another group create their own truth and their own valid for them and only for them interpretation. The validity of interpretation should not be questioned, because the validity is only for that group, but the validity of our research is a different thing, and could be questions. Is that that research valid for the group we study, because if we interfere too much with our own value or our own perception and deform the idea come from the studied group, then the paper is our own worldview, our own philosophy, but not a real study about one group or another group. So we do some social studies, some social epistemology or social philosophy, but not necessarily social studies. Disclosure and avoidance of potential conflict of interest is also important, because we can be in a conflict of interest if we are, not only if we have relatives, or if we are in some connection with the group. This could influence research, but we can do research in our own environment, and we can have participatory research, or being there, and we can interact with that group and without influence our research. But we have to taste really test what are our own perception, our own influence about the collected data, and about interpretation the collected data, and how we collect the data and how we interpret that data. And we have to clearly say this could be a conflict of interest, because I want to be real. I try to avoid this. I try to avoid express my own feelings, my own sentiments, but does not generally say that I'm without any distortion or without any disinformation, that are not unhonest, maybe, but they come from our own views, or our own subconscious mind, or for our own values, or so in many research that made for the person that have for instance religious beliefs, they say they are in many studies we can observe that they try to particularly say that are some group of Christians. So for instance, in some studies about religious informed social work practice, they more say that when the social workers are religiously informed, they tend to have more empathy. But this is particularly valid for one group of the religiously informed social worker that come from Orthodox Church, for instance, and we have to take into consideration that conclusion come for instance, for researchers that are their own belief in this kind of religions, and have this belief. So it's more probable that this bias to have influence on the results, and say they have to compare, but their own ideas that social workers should have empathy, should have Christian values, and pity for the others, and mercy that could inform the social work practice, could be important when they say, well, our own colleagues that work in social work and they are a religious person is more merciful than other colleagues that are not practice some religious practice. That's their own idea, and that's their own truth. and that could be particularly valid for one or many other groups, because we tend to select in this sample the person that confirm our point of view or our worldview, and to tend the saturation model when this reality is confirmed. So other important ethical problem is the protection of the participant in the research, because if the participant even believe that their own value or their own point of view or their own truth, as we say, because we are talking about the truth, their own truth will be mispresented or will be influence their own life, their own reality, their way of acting, not only their what they say or their presentation, but even the way they act will change or could change immediately and drastically. And so the simple fact that that they know that we search for them, that we question them, and we interview them or observe them, influence their behavior, and could influence their behavior for a long time, and in a way that they are not aware of it, and in the way that is distorted for them the reality. The distorted reality become the new reality. The distorted truth become the new truth, and something like this. So the care for the participants, even if we talk about the animals or something like this. So this is what we try to present today. So please see the other presentation we talk about, the presentation about the qualitative inquiry and the ethical dimension of the qualitative inquiry in social science, and especially in grounded theory, because these two presentations is somehow connected in between. And if you have any questions, please ask these questions, and in the chat or in the comments section of this video presentation. Thank you very much for your presence and participation.